World Championship Wreckage, presenting wrestling the way you remember it.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Wreckage here on World Championship Wreckage's YouTube channel. As always, I am your friendly neighborhood dad hat wearing wrestling fan. Join with me. I guess we're the four horsemen, four horse people, four.
Wrong.
Binary.
I am interrupting you right now. We are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That's
of
what I
wrestling
thought. I didn't
podcasts.
know which one we were.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah, that's correct because I claimed Raphael. Gotcha. I forgot about that. Anyway, join with me, as always, from Rivet City Radio and Box Spots and Chair Shots. A chef by trade, a mark by choice. You know him, you love him. From the great state of Tennessee, the Will Gray. What's up, buddy?
We're 1-0. We beat the Chattanooga Moccasins 69-3. It's a victorious day for the University of Tennessee football program. But other than that,
that's up there. That school mascot is up there. There was a guy I went to college with, someplace in Georgia, and I laughed so hard when he first told me this in college. His high school mascot, they were the syrup makers.
we were the Green Wave.
I was a Viking.
The Green Wave.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to be here. Chat about wrestling. Do my thing
Yeah.
as always with you beautiful people. I love you all.
And then right below me, as he would say, my brother from another mother, from Cole TV, XLJ the OG. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm rocking this lovely T-shirt. I don't know who sent this to me.
That's a lovely T-shirt
it's a
you have
beautiful
there.
T-shirt. And then
So
go
real
ahead.
quick though, have we ever told the backstory on that?
No, I was
yet
going to say,
publicly?
like, do you want to do the history of the shirt?
Absolutely. So originally that shirt was purchased at the ECW versus WWE head-to-head show in Dayton, Ohio, right before One Night Stand. It was a show I was at, so I rummaged through the storage and see I still had it. It's in perfect condition, and it had your name on it, Dad.
It does.
So.
Well, it actually says EC fucking W, but I'll take that. Y'all want to call me EC fucking W? I like it. And the second time officially, but for the first time as an official host now, the Queen of Extreme. I've dubbed her that. You love her, Cake Face Carly. Hey.
Hello.
And we're going right up your alley with this first episode.
Oh, I am so hyped for this.
This is making up for the Jeff Jarrett one.
Hey.
Oh, I mean, that one's still, number one in my eyes, of course. So
I still want that ringside collectibles Jeff Jarrett figure.
I
Every time
won't
see
out
it.
them. I won't out them on air because I know they listen to the show because they told me listening to you like campaign for Double J, they were like, I hate him in 2024, but listening to you campaign for him up until this run in AEW, they were like, I hate the fact that I was like, fuck yeah, Will Gray, go Double J. They were like, I hate that you convinced me to be a Double J fan.
Wait, who is this?
I don't want to put it
That's
out there. I'll tell you when we go off air.
Okay.
But I'm not going to put their business out there. But they were pretty adamant about being anti-Double J until they heard my rant. And then they were like, oh, shit. Like, again, Will Gray makes points. That's what I do.
Yeah. Yep. Well, today, Will's got the ball. He's going to be running the show. It was his topic. And we're talking the evolution of hardcore wrestling. We've talked a little bit, our love of ECW and things like that. We're going to, broaden the strokes here. But Will, it's yours, my friend.
I promised you guys with this episode that I won't make it. I always go back to my biggest fear being that very first episode we did, Dad Hat. And I say it's the Old Testament of World Championship Wreckage because it was me doing the evolution of WCW. And it was like he begot him and he begot him and he
Ted Turner
begot him.
yeah.
Yeah, Ted Turner bought this and Vince McMahon bought that, and so cometh. But it was like, Jesus, I don't want to do that again. So what I decided tonight was, in my head, the evolution of hardcore wrestling, where it starts and where it gets to the point where the four of us were the biggest fans. So instead of doing the Will Gray TED Talk, I'm going to give you my 4 biggest points throughout wrestling history that made up the biggest evolution talking points between 1930 and the 1990s. Okay. And then I'm going to open the floodgates for you guys. I'm going to make this real quick. First and foremost, the great state of Georgia. In Atlanta, Georgia, you had Count Rossi versus Jack Bloomfield, 1937, in what would be the first cage match in professional wrestling history. They had big poles in each corner, and they wrapped that bitch with chicken wire. By the 1940s, they had evolved to know the bars and the various versions of what we got up into that point. You know what I mean? Then the chain links and all the shit that we have till today. 1930s, like chicken wire to start it, okay? Then we get Wild Bill Curry, the 1940s. This was the first man to actively use a folding chair as part of like a gimmick. You know what I mean? Like he was that crazy madman who was the first time you would see the heel end up do so much dastardly heel shit that they were disqualifying people now. It wasn't just a heel doing stuff behind the ref's back. This man was so unafraid to break the rules that he was now losing on purpose to cause damage with his chair. And he was one of the first people in wrestling history to do that. Following him was maybe one of the most influential hardcore wrestlers of all time, and that's Dory Funk Jr. He took everything that Wild Bill Curry was doing with the chairs and evolved and mastered it to become the Texas Death Match. Now, keep in mind, the Texas Death Match still had a pinfall in the ring, but they could do whatever they wanted, okay? It was pretty much in the ring, around the ringside areas and stuff like that. They would get into the stands. We're going to start expanding that arena a little bit because after you get through that, and do the Dory Funk mastered it, Texas Death Match. Although the DQ tactics had been used previously, Curry and Dory Funk Jr., like I said, they were the first two that really took it to that point of pushing it to getting DQ'd and using those tactics in their matches. The Texas Death Match in wrestling became the ultimate blow-off match outside of the cage match. So now you have 2 big blow-off matches, not just a cage match anymore. And then that gets to what I feel is the birth of modern hardcore wrestling. And Dad Hat's going to roll his eyes as soon as I say his name. Birth of hardcore wrestling. The first Falls Count Anywhere match that I could find in history, 1979, the Tupelo Concession Stand Brawl. Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee versus the Blonde Bombers. Okay. So, like, you think about the fact that this match at the time in 79 was so violent that Lawler and Jarrett they didn't make any money. It was his dad. So you were right. There was a Jarrett involved. They didn't make any money because the amount of damage these men caused to the arena. Okay. You think about the fact that in 1979, they wrecked the arena to a point that a sold out crowd did not bring enough at the gate to pay for the damages that these 4 men did.
Jesus.
So in my opinion, that was kind of the birthing point of modern hardcore wrestling. Then we get into the 80s and you get into your Continental Championship wrestlings and your World Wrestling Councils in Puerto Rico and these wild hardcore, you get your Bruiser Brodies and your Abdullah the Butchers. They start breeding into your.
Is that the Canadian version of Abdullah the Butcher?
The Butcher? That was a little bit of that was me talking through a burp. I was trying to be on my P's and Q's.
Did Brie inhabit your brain for a second?
You know, a boot? Go get me some Timbits, eh?
Abdullah the Butcher.
Abdullah the Butcher. And then you saw those evolutions. And then we get into the evolution and we see Cactus Jack break onto the scene. And it all kind of built up from these cage matches in the 1930s to Wild Bill Curry to Dory Funk Sr. Then we get to the 1990s, and that's when we genuinely had that boom happen. Okay. And this is, again, I'm going to open up the floodgates because this is around that time where a lot of mine, Dad Hats, and XLJ's core wrestling fandom start. Carly, I know you have started to go back and rewatch a lot of this stuff, especially. But this is the beginning of it. We get into the 90s. We get Big Japan Deathmatch Wrestling with FMW. We get ECW and Paul Heyman. We get through the end of that. We get IWA Mid-South with Ian Rotten, evolution into CZW, GCW, Jersey Championship Wrestling. Guys, as fans, we always say it, wrestling as fans remember it. Where do you guys start with hardcore wrestling? And thank you for letting me do my spew. I always love those.
Oh, wonderful. I had goosebumps. My nipples may have been hard, but anyways,
Good.
seriously, like for me,
Pat's not on the screen.
Oh yeah. God, I wish
Pat's not on the screen.
Love you,
I mean,
Pat.
but I mean, Will is probably the second most handsome, person on wrestling.
Not only that, and I mean, the man cooks. I mean, that's right to my heart.
Anyways,
Anyways,
I cook and I'm house trained. That's about what I bring to the table.
there you go.
That's all we can ask for.
I think a lot of us are probably going to say, "What's on Dad Hat's shirt?" ECW. I mean, that's where it started for me. I can remember, like a kid, I was 10 years old, flipping through the channels, 1:00 at night. I remember it like it's yesterday. Prime Sports Network, and I'm like, "What is this?" Because all I know is WWF, WCW, right? And in the ring, I see Tommy Dreamer, I see Shane Douglas, Raven's over in the corner, and Shane Douglas is talking about Beulah McKillicuddy and Kimona Wanalea hooking up, and Tommy says, "I'll take them both. I'm hardcore." And of course, 10-year-old XLJ is like, what is this? So, like, oddly enough, that's kind of like, but then I tuned in and started watching week after week, and it's just like, holy shit, Matter of fact, if I remember correctly, I think one of the next weeks they had this 4-way match for the TV title, and it was like Chris Jericho, Shane Douglas, Pitbull #2, and Too Cold Scorpio. And I mean, it was just an incredible fair. I mean, Pitbull too, like, oh man, he put on like a hell of a performance, just got the shit beat out of him. But for me, that's kind of like my first real memories. It starts with ECW, and then I remember reading in magazines, like looking through and then seeing like tape trading, like you're saying. And then if later on in the 90s, I can remember when FMW started putting out their cassette tapes here in North America, and that's when I was really starting to get into that. And then I had buddies who had like copied stuff, the tape from a tape and it was, like you say, tape trading. I mean, tape trading in the 90s, kids just aren't going to understand how magical that truly was. So for me, that's kind of some of my first experiences.
Two things before Dad has to go, or Carly, whichever one. I will make names since I'm hosting today. For me, one, Tommy Dreamer set a very unfair precedent because 13-year-old Will at the time was just figuring out what sex even was. Tommy Dreamer not only presents the idea, not only is it easy to have sex, but is multiple people at the same time. I was like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, I'm just figuring out this is possible, and you tell me that now? What?
Yeah.
Tommy Dreamer ruined it right off the rip. I was like, that seemed way too easy. And I've been chasing that dragon since the 90s now. Thanks, Tommy Dreamer.
I feel you, brother.
Oh my God.
At the core of it, you're right. The tape trading thing for me.
I can't say I have to chase it anymore. So
the tape trading thing for me is, like, to put it in perspective, I would rent a tape or dub a tape or record it off the TV. And what I would do is I would make a copy, and then I would take it to school with me, and I would find somebody who had a tape that I wanted, and he would trade me for the tape that I had because he didn't have it. And I would take what he had because I didn't have it. And sometimes I would take 2 or 3 tapes because I would record extra copies, and I would be able to trade 2 or 3 tapes that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was always the same 4 or 5 guys. But XLJ, you're right. It was that, for me, I want to say it was that 96 or 97 range. The first time I remember getting a dubbed Japanese VHS tape where it was like it was subbed rather. I was getting like English subtitles, but the Japanese commentary. And I was like, what?
What are we doing? Yeah.
It was unreal. So Dad Hat, Carly, what about you guys? Where do you guys come into this hardcore conversation?
Ladies first.
Well, I will say for me, it probably started a little bit differently than you guys because when I first started watching wrestling and everything, it was just, with WCW and then leading into WWF. I didn't even know until, when they brought like the hardcore title in, WWF and everything. And that really started it for me and just being like, ooh, I want more, And then I had heard, just through the grapevine about like ECW and stuff like that, but didn't get to experience it except for the, watered down version that they did in, 2007 and everything. But a lot of mine after is like just falling in love with it and just, I don't know, everything that goes into it. And now just going back, watching a lot of older hardcore and death matches, really loving the Japanese scene. I think that's really right now like my bread and butter of like hardcore stuff is like the Japanese scene and everything. But yeah, at first it was just, WWF, the hardcore title and everything, getting that little bit of taste, wanting more, and then has now developed into the psychopath that I am.
For me, it all starts with the hold on, let me make sure I can count right. 5 best words ever in pro wrestling history. The Chamber of Horrors match.
What?
Halloween Havoc,
That's
1991.
Wow.
Like, it made me as a kid for some reason love cage matches. And it's right around that same time, as I'm watching and everything, you get cage matches where, like, Sting blows out his knee and Flair chases him down. Like, there's that, and there's War Games and that kind of stuff. And then, like, the whole, someone taking Hogan, I'm going to say, fuck you, Terry, taking out Hogan's leg with a pipe. Like, it's little pieces that started, like, build the puzzle of my love for hardcore wrestling. And then getting into ECW and see, I didn't have anybody like to tape trade in terms of like my friends at school. I'm jealous of that, very highly jealous that you had that. Tape trading / buying was at a kiosk in one of the Mills Mall here, not far from where I live, and I remember walking by and I saw wrestling, and then I saw explosions and was like, what's that? My dad bought it for me. He's like, don't tell your mother. Because they were divorced, and he was just like, if I was getting you this, he's like, watch it when she goes to sleep.
I find it funny you say the divorce because I just had like a crazy memory hit me. Like, we're talking about tape trading and stuff. Like, one of my best friends in middle school, like, he actually, so he was a divorced child too, and his parents bought him every single fucking pay-per-view. It's like, we're sorry, son. So here's this. Like, here, go warm up some Kraft macaroni and cheese and watch some wrestling. Like,
God,
literally,
no.
that's who I got the vast majority of my tapes. Shout out to Tyler, buddy. I ain't seen you in like 30 years. I hope you're doing well, bud.
Shout out to the homie Tyler.
Yeah. So no, for me, divorce child, it was. I maybe got everything when it came out on VHS. Like, at one point, I'm pretty sure I owned the entire WCW and WWF 1998 pay-per-view, like all those.
Nice.
Like I know I owned them on VHS at one point.
Oh yeah,
Real question, Dad. Did you have the Sable tape?
I did have the Sable tape.
Called it.
Yes, I did. Yes,
of course you did.
Yes, I did.
So, in the 90s, there were a few of those big moments. So one of the questions I did have jotted down that I wanted to ask you guys outright about this is King of the Ring, June 1998. Mankind got yeeted off the top of the Hell of the Cell by one Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, just outright to the three of you. And then I'm going to answer. You guys have to answer first, and then I'm going to give you my answer. Is that the best bump in wrestling history?
Yeah, I think it's the most significant because
Do
I
you?
mean it.
Okay.
Yeah, I do in a sense of like nobody had ever done anything like that up to that point. Like
I have a
to
really
fall that
inappropriate
far.
answer.
Like I mean, it's just like, and the fact that like get up back on the cage and gets thrown through the cage and hits the. I mean, it's still mind-boggling me to this day. I can't even formulate words talking about this. Like so, to me, yeah, I think it is the most significant bump in wrestling. I would say is Foley getting thrown off the cage and going through the cage.
Dad hat, Carly?
I say yes, but I also have another one, but I'm not going to say it on air because I ain't trying to get canceled.
Fair.
Hold on, I'll put it in the private chat just so we can get the reactions on camera. No one's saying what it actually is.
I can't wait.
I know.
The anticipation is killing me.
Mm-hmm.
The
If I can
anticipation.
type.
Mm.
Patient.
Okay.
Oh.
Well,
Come
that
on.
hat's joke of the week.
Jesus.
And as you said, I am not saying that on camera.
That's my kind of humor, though.
Yeah.
You could just clip this part. Like nobody will never know. Just
I mean,
the
or
four
you
of
could
us.
say,
Oh
hold
my
on,
God.
what's the dude, James Mitchell? You know, his bump on CW
On
television,
Oh, yeah.
He was
in
bumping,
NWA
all right.
television. That was a pretty significant bump.
The bump at Samhain 2023. That was fun. That was fun to write about and talk about.
Yeah.
But not necessarily the same thing. Carly, did you answer?
No, but I do agree. It's definitely one of the most significant, one of the most important, one of the most historic. I mean, just of mankind's teeth going through it and just everything. It's one of those moments.
So before we move on, I recently showed my former assistant manager that match for the first time. She was like, I'm thinking about getting into wrestling. You've piqued my interest. So I was like, I'm gonna send you some matches. And there's things like Ray versus Eddie, Halloween Havoc. You know, I did Brett Austin Mania 13. Like I did my favorite match, my favorite match, which is Hunter and Rock at SummerSlam '98. Like different things. And I sent this, and she watched it first. And her reaction, and I was just like, maybe that wasn't the best thing to start it out with.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, my next question is, okay, so hardcore wrestling. Do you automatically think the hardcore title in WWE, and I have a reason why I want to ask that question, is because there's a multi-layered onion that is hardcore wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think hardcore wrestling is the umbrella that encompasses everything else? Does hardcore wrestling encompass things like your Japanese Taipei death matches and your Punjabi death matches and your Piranha death matches and all of this? So let me ask you that. Is hardcore wrestling the umbrella that encompasses it all, or is hardcore wrestling the yin to deathmatch wrestling's yang?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Wow.
Carly, I think you got this.
Wow.
Will's like, and clip that motherfucker.
I got to get one.
That was no, that was brilliant because I guess almost in a sense, I guess technically both would be correct. Because if there wasn't, like your beginnings of hardcore wrestling, the deathmatch scene and Japan and everything wouldn't be what it was, and spreading to other companies in Japan and then ECW and everything. So I feel like yes, it's part of that umbrella, but in that other sense of it being the yin to the yang, I think because deathmatch is so much more, it's just this. I mean, and hell, even with just like some of the earlier ones, it's like literal death or close or trying to. And I think with that sense of just the intense creativity and everything with, death matches and everything. Yeah, I mean, I guess both would actually be correct.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the way I kind of look at it is this: if you look at the history of hardcore wrestling, like you touched upon earlier, how the initial thought process behind it from the promoters was to build upon something, to build to like a bitter rivalry and have like a crescendo, right? So there was a purpose behind the type of violence you were seeing. Now we fast forward and go get into. I would say you could argue maybe say in the 80s, but I would say mostly in the 90s. We get to like these Japanese deathmatch promotions. You get into the ECWs and whatnot, and a lot of it's really just kind of like, okay, who's the toughest guy in the room, right? So it's like it's not violence for the sake of like I have a vendetta against you and I need to get my revenge. It's more so violence and like, okay, how much can you take? What's your pain tolerance, right? And both to me are entertaining, I think. Like I love the hardcore division because I mean, let's face facts. Who didn't love seeing, Al Snow drag hardcore Holly into like the river or whatever the hell it was there at that
At the Pyramid in Tennessee.
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And then the destination zone when they were fighting in like the ball pit and stuff when Crash
Right.
House
Yeah. Just stuff like that. It was fun to see, but it was just it's kind of like this. It's like anybody that's like a horror fan, right? Horror movie fan. You've got different genres of horror film, right? It's not just like one horror film. So you've got slashers. You've got your psychological films. There's so many different subgenres in the category. And I think you can say the same with hardcore wrestling in all honesty. I myself, like I say, I love all of it personally, but and you look at right now, I mean, at the time of this recording, we are literally probably 24 hours away from what could be one of the most violent matches we've seen in a long time in Hangman Page against Swerve Strickland with the way they've built that matchup. I mean, to me, it harkens back to the days of like Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard, just a fucking blood feud, right?
Flair versus Harley.
There you go, man. So I mean, like I say, there's different forms of it. It's all fun. It's all exciting. It's like it's just a matter of like what's your cup of tea, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I mean, it's so weird for me to explain my fascination with hardcore and deathmatch wrestling because like Will knows this, like, and XLJ knows this, but like y'all know how much I love my technical wrestling. Like I love me some Bret Hart, love me not the person, but Chris Benoit's work in the ring. Like I love me a damn good technical match. Bryan Danielson, like I love that. But then you get the hardcore, and I mean, you kind of mentioned like encompassing it all. Yes, you've got things like in the fun zone, the ball pit, which is more of that humor side of things. But I mean, I look at a cage match, I look at a scaffolding match, I look at a TLC match, I look at Anarchy in the Arena. All those are hardcore matches. All those are, I mean, just different names, slight variations on it. Other than hey, you're in the ring, 1, 2, 3. You're not going to lose the match by getting DQ. So for me, that kind of all encompasses everything. But at the same time, I mean, then you can start getting into your specialities, I guess.
So I'm going to ask you guys this question. This is going to be kind of hard. I don't usually like to ask negative questions, okay? So along with hardcore wrestling and deathmatch wrestling comes a lot of judgment from the IWC and especially older wrestling fans about it being a shit show and they don't know what they're doing. They can't wrestle, so they do deathmatch wrestling. And you hear a lot of this negativity come from the IWC. Okay. When you look at it, this is the part that gets a little bit negative. Do you think promoters like Rob Black and Ian Rotten and some of these guys who have ran these promotions that have done these overtly ridiculous things for a pop, like serving surgical needles into genitalia and jumping off of 3 balcony stories on a folding chair, like some of the weird things are these guys, are Rob Black and Ian Rotten, hurting the business more by trying to push deathmatch wrestling?
Well, I think the thing you got to look at here is the two names you mentioned.
Mhm.
I mean, they are just.
There was a reason why I asked.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't go like. Okay, so I think I'm not trying to get too far off of this, but you look at like a GCW. People harp on that. That gets pigeonholed into it's just deathmatch wrestling. I've been to multiple GCW shows, and I can tell you, like, it is my favorite company right now going today to go watch one of their shows because from top to bottom, you're going to see everything. Are you going to see deathmatch wrestling? Sure, you're going to see that, but you're also going to see some lucha libre. You're going to see some technical. You're going to see strong style, all of that. Now, what those two guys that you mentioned, what they're promoting, it's just blatantly like, let's just do most violent, absurd stuff possible. Does it hurt it? I think it hurts other companies like a GCW and stuff who's actually, it's just, like I say, they get pigeonholed into just like, okay, this is all we're known for, but they do so much more than that. Like if you watch the product, it's so much better than that. And personally, both those guys, well, they can kind of fall in line with Terry Bollea and Vince McMahon as far as I'm concerned. So, and I'll leave it at that.
They're up there.
100%.
So
a while back, like I won't say probably when we first started doing podcasting, at least for me, Husky, and I don't remember if it was Michael was with us or if it was Jax, but we did an episode on CZW's Tournament of Death. And I mean, again, I'm all for hardcore wrestling. As long as it is done safely, as long as it is done, where no one's going to die doing this. I mean, hats off. I'm not literally going to take my hat off because I don't want to blind y'all with my bald head. But hats off to, why am I blank on his name? Almost died in the damn Tournament of Death. Was on AEW. Yes, thank you. I mean, if that happened to me, I would never. Cool. I'll hold a headlock for 20 minutes in every match moving forward. You want to see a wrist lock? I'll show you the best damn wrist lock.
That doesn't work for me, brother.
Yeah. But I mean, and that was one of those. That was probably one of my first times ever like diving into the Tournament of Death, and like to see things like someone taking a damn weed eater to someone's chest. Nope. Absolutely.
Riley's over here salivating.
So do you think there's
I
a
feel
point
weird because it's like I don't.
I would rather see someone literally fall from the scaffold, like on a scaffolding match, through a bunch of tables, than see somebody get a weed whacker to the chest.
Like New Jack style, throwing Vic off the top of the scaffold? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So do you guys think there's a point then? Like we've talked about, like at points we've said, should the show go on? Should like stuff like that? But is there a point in wrestling then where you just reach it in a match where you're like, maybe we shouldn't continue to push past this to see how many tables a guy can go through, how many chair shots he can take, how many glass panes he can break, how many light tubes they can use? Is there a line that should be drawn? Or are we going to continue to push it until we just become a snuff film then?
Jumper
Because it
cables
seems,
to testicles. Jumper
you know what I
cables to
mean?
testicles.
I feel like it depends on the promotion sometimes, because like going back to the last question with Rob Black and Ian Rotten and stuff like that, to me, I don't even feel like they were even promoting deathmatch as more they were just promoting absurdity, if that makes sense. Because there's, and I know this just, not to sound as odd as I already do, but I feel like there's, when it's done correctly, there's a certain art form to it. There's communication, there's respect shown afterwards, even if there is like a grudge match between the people. I mean, there's so much to it. But as far as like pushing it, again, it just depends on the promotion. Because I mean, there's been times that GCW has done some off the wall shit that it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe just a little like, holy shit. But I mean, they still pull it off well. Everyone ends up being safe or safe-ish. And, but with other companies like, like XPW and stuff like that, where it's just for the sake of being, almost like a dick showing contest. Kind of like, okay, well, here's what, figuratively and literally. But
I think my age has changed my opinion. I think, okay, maybe not my age. Maybe having kids has changed my outlook on things, because, like, I don't know. The world's a scary place. Things can happen.
oh, 100%.
And in the blink of an eye, someone can get hurt for something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's like back in the day, I would have been like, screw that, cut it, like chop his ear off, like
Twist his dick.
Grab him by the dick and twist it.
every that has been shouted at every AEW show I've ever been to.
I've heard it at WWE shows, brother.
heard-
Like I heard it at WrestleMania, for God's sakes. I'm like, what the fuck?
I screamed it at SummerSlam.
That was you. I knew it.
Oh, but I don't know. Maybe I think having kids has changed my outlook a little bit about it, just because I'm just like, I look at anybody going to the ring like, okay, yes, you're providing my entertainment, but you are someone's son, daughter, husband, wife, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, child, best friend. And so, like, I want to be entertained, but I don't want to be entertained to the point where you're not going to walk again, or you're going to be, you are completely paralyzed, or you die. Like, that's not fun. The only fun damage in sports, and I don't even like this sport, is crashes in NASCAR.
All right, I've got a couple more questions left, and these are just purely preference now, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about some of the evolution and some of the things that got us from the beginning to where we're at now. I want to ask a question. Do you have a favorite hardcore match? So it could be a death match. It could be a hardcore match, as we discussed. They were all kind of together, clumped together, put you on the spot. I didn't ask you ahead of time to think about it. I'll go first if you guys want me to.
Please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I always go to when somebody says, what's your favorite like WWE hardcore match? Okay. And this is going to seem crazy because it might not, it's not going to be who people think it will be. It's Royal Rumble 2000, Cactus Jack versus Triple H.
It's a great
That's
one.
my favorite WWE hardcore street fight style match.
That's my favorite Rumble.
Oh, it's a fantastic Rumble. My favorite outside of WWE death match, and this is one, it's not my favorite of all time, but I think this is one that everybody needs to watch, and you need to go back and watch it because it was right before Swerve signed with WWE, and it was when he was the CZW champion, and he was in a cage of death match against Joe Gacy. That you want to see, if you can have a chance to find that match with Joe Gacy before tomorrow night against Hangman Adam Page, you will see what Swerve is available to do in a cage match, and you're going to go, oh my God, this is going to be so good. So those are some of mine. So you guys are on the spot now.
Well, I think there's several, but this is the first one that comes to mind. I mean, the sheer brutality of this is just like it's mind numbing. I mean, it is one of those matches that just like if I want to show somebody like a spectacle, this is the one I go to. And I'm talking about King of the Ring 2000 with Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe.
Oh,
The
hell
evening
yeah.
gown match. Oh
Mhm.
shit. Come on, I had to get one in.
Classic. Banger.
No, oh Jesus, like oh Pat coming out. No, like man, there's so many. There's several that for me, Will, honestly, I gotta go old school. I kind of mentioned this match earlier. It's one of my favorite matches of all time. It was such a good rivalry. I still vividly remember images of this as a kid. Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard from Starcade. Just the sheer brutality of that, breaking the chair, that I quit, it was an I quit match, and just like fucking Magnum TA like stabbing like in the eye of Tully Blanchard, and Tully Blanchard's just covered in the crimson mask, and he was just like screaming into the microphone, and then finally quits. Like to me, that's definitely one. Keep him in the NWA vein too. I also look back at like the I think it was the first Bunkhouse Stampede. That was a very brutal matchup too. Like I just remember like them like they would come out not in typical wrestling attire, they'd come out in their street fighting gear, their workout gear or whatever, right? Dusty Rhodes wearing freaking jeans and like
Dusty and jeans, baby.
Yeah.
That's what everybody wants to see. Is
Yeah,
Dusty and
buddy.
jeans.
And I can just remember, like, I can't remember if it was the Barbarian or somebody was just taking their belt buckle and taking the part of it and just stabbing it in his arm and digging into his arm, and Dusty screaming out that classic Dusty scream. Like that's some of the first ones that comes to my mind with hardcore. And there's one more thing I kind of want to mention here that I forgot to mention when we were talking about one of some of the first things we were thinking about hardcore wrestling. As a kid in the 90s, I think Carly's going to relate to this too. We got to mention, what about the Stranglemania videos that was put out by ICP? Like, I mean, because that was kind of also some of the first FMWs. Now, granted, it was a little comical with ICP on the fucking commentary. Like, Cactus Jack was Cactus Jack, and going against Lama Nama Numi, and then you had Ponderosa going up against Steak House. You fat fucking. I'm sorry. Anyways, just throwing that out there. But yeah,
oh man,
those are some of my favorites. Is the earlier ones, I'd say. Oh, one more, real quick. Sorry. There was a barbed wire match between the Sheepards and the Fantastics. I remember that very vividly as well as a kid too. And for those of you who don't know, the Sheepards were the.
I was going to ask, does Carly know who the Sheepherders are?
The Bushwhackers.
But yes, it was the Bushwhackers, and trust me, the Bushwhackers were hardcore, like before they were licking people's heads. I'm just saying.
Go ahead, Carly.
Well, I would have to say when it comes to like legendary matches and stuff like that, one of my favorites is Terry Funk and Cactus Jack in Japan. IWA King of the Death matches. That one is just like so bizarre, so incredible.
That's like the death match.
Yeah.
Like the barbed wire cross and like the explode, like that was like the death match.
You look up death match in the dictionary, that's what you get.
I wholeheartedly believe that. That is the death match. Yes.
Couple random ones. It's funny that you had brought up Swerve and everything. His time in Lucha Underground, if anyone had watched, they had the Weapons of Mass Destruction matches. All of his ones that he did, all of them. I mean, his one with Jeremiah Crane or Sammy Callahan, his one with AR or Dante Fox. I mean, top tier, amazing. One of recent that I think is pretty awesome was the Acacia Survival match this year with Mance Warner and Effie. It was just the storyline, the fact that they were so technical within this death match was an amazing sight to see. Just of random people that I like, Mitsuhiro Matsunaga from, FMW, and then, his time in Wing and Big Japan and everything. He was part of one of the first ever death matches in Japan. You know what I mean? Like Onita, anything that he's been a part of. The fire death match that him and Tarzan Goto versus Sabu and Sheik. I don't know if that would be like a favorite of mine, but like the most chaotic, insane, should have never happened, but it did matches. I think that's about like in my, ones that stick out without going too far and diving into the rabbit hole of everything. I think that's a collective favorites that come to mind right away.
I've got 4 that kind of jump in my head, and they're all WWE. They just what clears right into it. Austin Brett, Mania 13. Like, it ties in. You can still be violent, but also have that technical side to it. SummerSlam 9. I'm a butcher the year. Taker, Mankind, Boiler Room Brawl.
96.
SummerSlam 96.
96. That's what I was thinking. King of the Ring 2001, Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Pane glass and everything. The glasses didn't break because somebody spray painted it. And then probably it's hard for me to say this is my favorite, but I think it is because of the brutality, and also because now, especially we know a lot more about things, but part of it's the creative like finish that you didn't know until the following night. I think Will knows where I'm going with this, but Royal Rumble 1999, Rock and Mankind. The chair shots heard around the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Chair shot after chair shot after chair shot. Unprotected in front of his children, traumatizing them for life.
Noelle Farley still hates that moment.
Yeah.
She'll tell you in interviews, she'll say that's her least favorite thing about pro wrestling was being in the crowd that day for that match. And no, she'll still say, I don't understand how people thought that was a good idea. Knowing we were there, Vince was like, you know what? All those unprotected chair shots, let's do it. Like she's still to this day is like, yeah, it's kind of a bad idea. Yeah. Guys, I hit my times. We always try to hit around that 45 to 50 minute mark. It is 47:22. So I did my job. It's back to you.
Thank you, Will, as always.
There's a dog in my office now.
I can't say the same.
My boys are sleeping, thank God.
Well, I'm about to say that I might have a 5-year-old walk into here, but that'll be about it. If the other one shows up, that just means he jumped out of his crib. Let's say his cage, his crib.
Oh my God.
Wow.
He's hardcore.
Whoa.
He's hardcore.
Because we were talking about cage matches out of his crib, and then decided he was going to walk downstairs for the first time. But yeah, thank you, Will, for always being so prepared, far more than I ever am. I love you to death. But before we get into business, as always, XLJ, we got to do a little plug-a-palooza. Carly, where can they find you? What you got going on? All the things.
Well, you can find me on TikTok and Instagram, cakeface_Carly. If you like deathmatch stuff, makeup, everything in between wrestling related, you'll love it. You can find me on Pole TV, PW60, as your Game Changer Wrestling bestie. And of course, you can find me here on Wreckage. Officially.
XLJ, Cole TV, what's going on over there?
Oh, well, we had another busy week, Dad Hat. Of course, right now you can catch replays of Pro Wrestling 60, as well as our recent episode of Learning the Ropes, which was a blast because we talked about something right up your alley, my friend. We talked about the WCW Cruiserweight division.
Oh, I know. I watched it.
Fun episode. We had a great time. Of course, joined by La Familia with Christy Tina and the sexiest man on Wrestle Talk, besides myself, maybe, Pat the Wise Man. It was a fun episode. Had a great time. And we've also got replays of our All Out prediction show, which Carly joined us for as well, along with Best Scout, Mr. B-Roll, myself. And I've got a replay of where I got to go to TNA Emergence in Louisville, which was an amazing show highlighted by the Iron Man match with Josh Alexander and Nick Demuth, which was incredible. So that's all available this week on Cold TV, and next week we've got a bunch of other fun stuff planned. So come on over to Cold TV over on YouTube. And of course, you can find me on like all socials, and you can find me here on Wreckage as well.
Will, what's going on with Rivet City Radio and Botch Bots and Chair Shots?
Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I want to say thank you all for allowing me to be a part of your circles. I love you dearly. If you're interested in all of my shenanigans, check my link tree in the bio. You'll find everything I do for Botch Bots and Cheer Shots, Rivet City Radio, Off the Top Media, and my writing profile for Lash Word on Sports. It's still there for right now. We've got lots of exciting stuff coming down the pipes. First and foremost, I'm going to be doing some cool little TikTok exclusive streams called Mario's and Moonsaults, where I'm going to be doing some retro gaming and discussing retro wrestling. It's going to be exclusively seen on TikTok through my page there. So it'll be a ton of fun. And check out my food truck at Hot Like Sauce Barbecue on Instagram.
I have had his meat in my mouth. It's quite good.
I'm jelly.
You're closer than anybody, XLJ.
I know. How is it that hasn't happened
No
yet?
excuse. I mean,
Shit.
And here's the thing.
no excuse.
Here's the thing. I'm not pulled pork is not my thing, and his pulled pork was damn good.
They're pretty good. That's pretty good.
Pretty good. You made me like pulled pork.
So that's it. I appreciate you guys always.
You can find me Dad Hat Wrestling on all social media. You can find me on PW60 over on Cold TV with Dad Hat's Dad Advice of the Week. Usually I try to just make it funny and appropriate because, hey, that's me. You also can find me. What?
Oh, I said best advice ever.
Oh, yeah.
I try. You can find me also over on twitch.tv/Wolfpack Podcast. Soon. We're kind of take a little hiatus. Come back soon. You also can find me not at your local Hot Topic anymore. Yeah, and here. Got some personal stuff going on, so these lovely three, I will be here. Sometimes I won't be here, so yeah. So some weeks I will be in, some weeks I will be out. So luckily I trust the shit out of all three of them. So yeah, that's what we got going on. Next week we've got the episode that I picked. We're gonna each come ready to talk about our top 10 wrestling t-shirts of all time. I'm excited about this. I know my top 5. I'm trying to figure it out my low end 5. So, but after that, it's going to be Carly's turn for the first time. So, do you know what you want to talk about?
So I'm not 100% sure if you guys have not done this yet. I don't think you guys have, but maybe me a little controversial. But would you like to talk about Chris Benoit?
Oh,
We have.
Oh, yeah, did you? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We did a Death of Eddie and Chris episode.
Okay.
I don't have a problem. What specifically would you like to discuss? Because I'm a big tinfoil hat guy. So if you want to talk about legacy in the ring and the terrible things that happen, we can. If you want to put our tinfoil hats on and talk about things like missing cell phones and BACs at 0.0, we can do that too. I'm here for whatever you want to talk about.
Well, I happened to miss that Wreckage episode, so I mean, and I don't know how many people. I don't know how many people know this, but Chris Benoit was my favorite wrestler growing up. I mean, despite all the bullshit, obviously. So I mean, yeah, I can throw down on that topic for sure.
It's your world, Dad Hat.
Spicing things up.
I don't care. I will always go back and rewatch Chris Benoit matches. So
I bit my tongue in that first show, knowing that I can wear my tinfoil hat for this one would be a lot of fun.
I'd say we go balls to the wall.
Then, all right.
Yeah.
Let's do it then.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I have an idea. Okay. I'm going to let it percolate for a little bit. Anyway, as always, we are going to end our show the same way we always end our show, with wise words from the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Yes.
Yeah, baby, I got one more thing to say. Your gas tank is full. Your dipstick is in. Your windows washed. Y'all come back and see me again.